This is TWiT. Speaking of things that we will not, that I did see, by the way, because it wasn't immersive and I don't have a Vision Pro, but I enjoyed, was the George Clooney and Brad Pitt vehicle Wolves, which was an Apple TV. Well, it was going to be a theatrical release.
Yes, it was.
And it was, wasn't it? And Apple decided, yikes! After Fly Me to the Moon did not fly to the moon, they decided, maybe we shouldn't put Wolves out in the theaters. We're just going to stream it directly. To which Brad Pitt and George Clooney said something unprintable. Yeah. Because their compensation was tied to theatrical revenue, theatrical take.
Yeah, Apple presumably paid them off, and I'd be surprised if there wasn't some sort of payout if there wasn't a theatrical
release. There'd be a suit. Remember Scarlett Johansson?
Exactly. So I think
there'd be a suit.
There would almost certainly be a payout in that scenario. I think the problem here is how Apple, like reading all the coverage of this, I don't think anybody's questioning Apple's decision to not release it in theaters. I think the problem is they did it last minute. It was like a week before, I think, is what Jon Watts, the director-writer, said that he heard about it. So it happened last minute. It obviously was a blow to them because there is prestige involved with doing a theatrical release, and you're working with creative people. Apple handled this more like canceling a product, right? Which I'm sorry, it really does feel like they don't understand the relationship issues in Hollywood, that you need to have good relationships with the creative people who generate the content. The money is good and they'll take your money, but if all things being equal, they'll work with somebody they're more comfortable with. And then,
well, that interesting twist on this is not only releasing it only on Apple TV, not in the theaters, Apple also put out a press release saying, and a sequel is in the works,
yes.
Wolves 2, to which Jon Watts said,
No, it was, a sequel was in the works, though. That's the thing. But when they killed the theatrical release, Jon Watts said, take the sequel. Please don't mention the sequel in your press release because I don't want to do it. I'm unhappy with you. And they said it anyway, which is also a betrayal and clearly there as a face-saving measure. I think they probably figured they were also saving face for Jon Watts and everybody else involved to say, no, we like it creatively. This is a business decision. But when the guy tells you not to mention it because he doesn't intend on doing it and you do it anyway, that I think that's worse. That is a worse sign of disrespect for the creatives in Hollywood than the 1 week's notice to pull it from theaters. And again, I don't think it's a bad business decision. Apple's movie business is being completely realigned because it's been a disaster. They're going to make a whole bunch of different decisions about how they do movies going forward. But like, you gotta take care of the talent, and you gotta be aware of the relationships.
It wasn't just Apple either. I mean, Disney, Warner Brothers, they've all got locked horns with. There
have been hyperbolic stories about how Apple has burned its bridges in Hollywood over this, and I'm like, guys, every studio does things that make everybody angry at them. Yeah, they all have it. It's like saying I'm never going to fly this airline, and you run out of airlines at some point. You can't do that. Again,
Disney did the about face. Warner Brothers did an about face. Many of them have done these about faces where at the last minute they switch over to streaming because they don't. Because the problem, the real problem is that we all have pretty big screens at home and we all have a ton of content. And if you don't knock it out of the park, like this is worth seeing on a big screen, everyone just goes, I'll just wait until it comes out. There's not the drive that I have to go see it in the theater is not like part of what drove an incredible weekend for Wicked was the camaraderie, people being so excited about it and talking about it and making it. But that's a very unusual thing to have happen. You saw it with Barbieheimer last year. And so but I think that the issue
believe it's pronounced Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer. Yeah, there you go. Barbenheimer. This one was supposed to be, I thought it was like, what was it? It was Glick. It was something like Glick.
Jiminy Glick?
Glickid.
What?
They were trying to make it into
they were trying to gladiator.
They were trying to PR their Glickid, I think. Glickid. They were trying to get the gladiator thing together.
Or else Wadiator, which maybe not the right image.
Wadiator. So anyway, the problem is that if films now, like for instance, I think Wolves was great. I think it was a great movie. It was really fun. I would never have gone. I would have
Wouldn't
never
have
gone to see that in the theater.
There's
ever.
Yeah, no, me neither.
And that's the math problem is, and if I had gone to the theater, I probably wouldn't have loved it as much because I enjoy as a free film that had Brad Pitt and George Clooney and had a reasonably good thing. It was fine. It was like a good ride. But that's not good enough to go to the theaters anymore. And that's the problem that a lot of folks, and that's what the reality is starting to set in. And then the problem is that even though the primary use is streaming and you release it to the theatrical and you're just offsetting some costs and you're getting PR. What you get is a bunch of bad press. This was, Napoleon was a disaster and this was a disaster. You didn't get any because the press, the Hollywood Reporter and Variety are only comparing you to other film releases, not, oh, this is a streaming thing that we also put out on theatrical. We don't really care if it makes money. It doesn't have to. We offset some of the costs. We get a bunch of PR out of it, blah, blah, blah. And so
but that's flipped, right?
But
what's happened is money in the theatriatul. You make it in the streaming now.
Well, I don't know.
International
that's the theory. That's the theory. Yeah. The theory is that you're going to supply this feed of people that are constantly paying that subscription, and you got to figure out how to rationalize the cost of the film. The bottom line is that it's going to be really interesting to see whether theatrical survives this because for these streamers, I don't think that the math doesn't make any sense the problem is that the big tent poles they're not consistent anymore. And so no one knows where that's going. Anything less than those big tent poles are generally not doing well in the movie theaters.
Even Marvel isn't doing all that. No,
because I think a lot of people don't really like the multiverse.
They had to spend so much money marketing Wicked. I mean, there were Wicked tie-ins at Target. They had to spend so much money on Wicked to market it.
Because they have another one that they have part 2 that has to succeed, and so, but that's a big deal. It's like you've already, gone down this path and shot another one and it has to be well. When I was a kid, the Thanksgiving movie was Mary Poppins and there were lines around the block to go see Mary Poppins. So I guess there's a Hollywood tradition of, you got to have a kid movie for Thanksgiving that is box office. And I think that the reason they put that kind of marketing in is because it's a good movie. I haven't seen it yet.
Is it good? Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet, but every person I talked to said that Wicked is really, Andy's probably more of a theatrical person than most, more of a theater person than most of us who you've seen, I'm sure, Andy, Wicked in the theater, right?
Yeah. And live in theater. I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater. I saw it on Broadway. It was quite good.
Great.
Yeah,
great show.
Yeah, so I think.
But the first 2 acts, the third act flopped. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Since in fact the 2.5 hour theater experience is being stretched to 2 different movies over 2 different years.
Yes, right.
Which doesn't.
But they have to have it. It's a big, but they wouldn't have put what you see in Hollywood a lot of times is if they don't think it has legs, they would have dumped it. They would have done something quietly, just let it die. Right. They saw a film that was really good. They have a sequel that's already built into it. Yeah. They were like, we got to make the first one successful, or the second one's gonna, this is gonna be a real problem. So you see a lot of marketing in it, and it's again a good film. It's a good property. It's good. It has all the right things, in that area. And so
it's got green and it's got pink. So you're set, man.
But no red, because red would be a copyright infringement on the Wizard of Oz the movie, while silver is not a copyright infringement against
silver. The original Wizard of Oz, she wore silver shoes, not ruby slippers. Ruby slippers was an invention of the MGM movie.
So that they could show off.
Is it still copyrighted? It's like 1939 movie.
It's still.
I think it's until
we're not there yet.
2034.
They made sure that paperwork was up to date. And also, there's an original set of ruby slippers up for auction at Heritage Auctions right now.
There you go.
So if you want to see them in absolutely 8,000 pixels by 12,000 pixels, you can go to Heritage Auctions and download these pictures. They're quite amazing.
But
I wonder. Do you think so? I don't think it's just Jon Watts. He returned his money after the press release and said, "I don't trust Apple anymore." But I wonder if he also realized George Clooney and Brad Pitt were in the same boat. I mean,
yeah. I think the truth is that what's happening here is that creatives are being taught that when you take money from a streamer to make your movie, and you get to put in that swimming pool or whatever you're going to do, buy that another house on Lake Como, whatever you want to do, that he
sold that house, by the way.
You don't. Well, that's why he's got to buy a new one. That when you do that, you're taking money from a streamer. You are going to give up. They might make noises about theatrical, but unless it tests well or the schedule looks right, you may not get theatrical with it, and you just have to accept that. Or you're going to need to take less money from somebody who really is going to give you an ironclad guarantee. And I think we've been in an era where everybody's been a little mealy-mouthed about it. And they're like, well, yeah, we'll do it. I mean, to Netflix's credit, they're just like, no, we're not interested in theatrical at all. Whereas Apple's like, sure, Ridley Scott, we'll let you put Napoleon in a few places and all of that. And I think we'll get over it. I think this is a period in time where there are going to be a lot of these kind of harsh lessons, and the streamers are going to firm up what their deals are going to be, and there will be a more clearly defined thing where creative types are going to have to say, and I love them. I'm a creative type in a different area, but like we love actors and directors and writers, but they're going to end up probably having to choose, do you want the ego boo of being in a theater, and how many millions of dollars are you willing to take off of the top line in order to get it? And when you're like, oh yeah, I mean, I love the theater, but $10 million more sounds pretty good, we'll stream that baby, right? Like, I feel like we're headed there, but we're going to have a series of these incidents where, you know, I think Apple behaved badly in the standpoint from a relationship management perspective, but also it's also the cold, hard facts of the business. And I think it will resolve itself. I do think there's a future for theatrical. There are a bunch of movies that have made billions of dollars this year, and that will continue. But a lot of these movies that are getting these kind of obligatory releases with these huge budgets, I mean, you're already seeing the retrenchment where Apple might do a couple of big movies a year, but they're not going to do 8 big movies a year with big budgets. It doesn't make any sense for anyone. And
the thing is that what I will say is that most of the streamers are looking really, really hard at series, and you're going to see more and more of these series. It's a much better math for them to do these. And so the thing is that they went into features because that's how they attract all these actors. But where they're really kind of leaning more and more towards is building less and less features, spending less on them, figuring out how to make them more transactional, because they're really high risk. 2 hours of something is a super high risk thing unless you just absolutely know it's going to work. You look at Red One; they put a lot of time and money into Red One, and it was a disaster. I don't know.
Oh,
how
was it really?
Yeah, money wise, oh yeah, they took a bath, and
it looks
so
awful. To be honest with you,
I didn't see it. I haven't seen it yet. That's the problem, is I haven't seen it yet. Not I, but I mean,
aren't
a lot of
people
just
like, saying, unless it's something that like Oppenheimer, where you really want to see it in the theater, I'll just wait.
I mean, the problem is there's only about 5 to 8 directors right now that are making films that are worth going to see in the theater. So I mean that are taking advantage of that medium at that scale, because they're dumb. Denny, James Cameron, Christopher Nolan. These are the folks that think in very large visual. So they're thinking in really big. Because what's interesting is, as I do a lot of work where I do stuff for the phone, I do stuff for theaters, I do stuff and each one of those mediums actually there's the way you shoot it changes. It like things that work really, really well on a big screen don't always work on a TV as well, and definitely don't work on the phone because they're too wide. And so the thing is there's some people that think of in epic proportions, and in those, when I see an Oppenheimer come out or a Dune come out or those types of things, I think, oh, I got to go see that in the theater, because that's going to be an experience. Like Interstellar, they're doing the 1570 release of Interstellar again, I think next Friday.
I'd like to see that, yeah.
It was on sale for 3 hours, and the Metreon was sold every seat. Like it was like IMAX, boom, because
70 millimeter film.
There is a future for theatrical. It's just not the future that is going to have a kind of a shambly movie like Wolf's in it, right? Like that, and right. I love those movies. I love, like, there's never going to be a big blockbuster release of something like Out of Sight or some of those other Steven Soderberghs or Ocean's 11, or like, I feel like those days are over. And if you look at the charts for this year, you can see it, right? Denis Villeneuve is there. Doom Part 2 is number 4 and grossed like 700 million. But like Inside Out, so there's a Pixar there, there's a Marvel. Deadpool and Wolverine was the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. Inside Out and Despicable Me. So you have, and Kung Fu Panda 5 is in the top 10. I mean, there are for kids and action and certain directors and certain franchises, like, and like even Oppenheimer, a serious adult drama, rated R, and it was a hit.
It's just that
it will happen. It will happen,
days,
but it's not like it was. Not like it was.
And the problem is that can you keep selling enough popcorn to keep the theaters, going?
Oh yeah.
Between those, there's not enough. There's just not enough.
Marin County update, right? All our theaters are basically disappearing because they just can't fill them. And so they're all just sort of vanishing now. And we're down to a smaller and smaller number. I think that will happen. Something you said there, Alex, about TV series, I was thinking about this. I think that in the streaming era, one of the things that needs to change, in addition to sort of like this trade-off between you want to get more money or do you want to be in a movie theater, I think is we are seeing the very slow erosion of the movie star as being like, I don't do that. I only do movies. Right. And so I think there was a headline this week that really put a knife in it about how Wolf's is the most expensive TV movie ever made, which like, hey, congratulations, Brad Pitt and George Clooney, you're in a TV movie. I mean, it's not, but it is. And I do wonder.
It means a very different thing than it did back in the day.
It does, but I think, so like novels are more successful and popular than short stories. Movies are short stories. It's always been interesting that movies have been so successful, but I think in the streaming era, I think there are some things that really should be movies, but there are also probably a lot of things that are not only good, but you could spend that money and do a 6-hour miniseries or an 8-hour miniseries or something you call a series instead of a movie with the same budget and the same stars, and people might like it better.
Interesting to pair Apple's Dune series with the Villeneuve Dune.
You mean Disney's?
I'm sorry,
Dune series, yeah.
No, it's HBO. So
it's HBO.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Can't keep track.
Warner
that's
does
the problem.
Dune.
Yeah, I know. Can't keep track.
In any event, it'll be. And I wonder how long it is before creatives go, well, the thing about this long form, multi-episodic TV is we can really stretch our legs. Alfonso Cuarón decided after reading Disclaimer to make it an 8-part series instead of a 2-hour movie. And I think as a viewer, I'd hate to see Game of Thrones the movie. I think it was, much better spread out over 7 seasons.
Over 4 at least.
4 good seasons.
4 seasons. It slowly wound out.
I mean, that's the thing. They're going to have to learn. There is a natural length to these things. Don't do the 7th season because it's a mistake. I think that there's a new and for us as viewers, we have much better screens now. We have much better sound at home. I think that people are happy watching stuff at home.
If the hardest part for series is for I think writers to not lean on things that are easy, like relationships, because the number one reason that people in my family stop watching things is because a quote unquote got soapy. Like it started off as there's a thing, and then suddenly everybody's in a relationship.
Well, they have to learn. Just as they have to learn, immersive video, they have to learn this new medium.
I mean, and I think that like a perfect example, one that's doing it well is Slow Horses, which I just think is just one of the best series.
Incredible.
And if they just keep, I'd watch that every, and Silo just came out again with the first 2 episodes, which I love Silo.
You're proving my point and I think creatives, people like Scorsese and others are going to eventually say, yeah, this is the future. Economics is forcing us in that direction, but this is a future. It's sad because Apple has an opportunity to be the HBO of the next era where creatives trust them, creatives love them, they have lots of money, they get to do what they want, and it seems like this was a fumble, an unnecessary
I think that they've all fumbled in that area. They've all had that problem, and it's because this is a fast-moving market. Everyone's trying to COVID put a huge wrench into the whole system, and things are still flying around. Like we think that it's all over because we can't, we're all able to go out again, but people's behaviors changed dramatically and they haven't gone back, and they're not probably going to go back. And it wasn't because of COVID. It was because streaming happened to be ramping up at the same time COVID hit. So suddenly all this stuff got flown into that. People got used to that, and then they don't want to go back to where they were. And I think that's and the problem is that the theatrical business is too risky right now, to do big films. And I think that, especially what scares people is not that Ocean's 11 might not be able to be released or whatever. What terrifies people is if Marvel puts something out that doesn't make a lot of money, it means that there's no automatic money anymore. And so they did really well in Deadpool, obviously. But some of the other Marvel products haven't done as well, and that terrifies people because it just means that there's not if we go to action adventure that type of thing, we can always come back with a paycheck. That makes everything less stable. And so I think that that's the thing that'll be really interesting to see what happens next. But I think that streaming is the future of some kind. We're going to see more and more of that. And I think that I do agree that there'll be still some theatrical, but I think that you're going to see less and less and less of it. And the theaters are, I think, going to probably find other things to do with their screens.